Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the XPL plasma market. Big launch day today. That's what we're excited about. That's what we're going to talk about amongst the other headlines, because we're also going to be talking about that is another red day in the market. ETH BNB and Sol down 3%, Bitcoin red as well. We'll reflect on that before we get into the news around Plasma's XPL trading at around, keeps moving up. So I need to update you, around 85 cents from a 0.05 cent pre-sale. So we will discuss Plasma ahead of its launch today at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So not very long to wait before that. And finally, CZ Backperp Asterdex flips Circle in 24-hour fees, which is pretty insane. We'll have a quick reflection on Asta. We've been talking about it a lot, but I feel like today's day may be for XPL. Got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. We're ready to get into it, but just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. Everything is incredibly risky, and we do not know anything for sure, especially when we start to talk more complex ideas and strategies, which, as the market is moving faster and further, we are doing. So please proceed with caution, exercise your own judgment. This is not financial advice. With that out of the way, Legendary, it's Thursday. It's the 25th of September. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, good to be back after missing yesterday's show, where I was actually watching on YouTube, which is something that I rarely do because I'm, well, here every day. It's a nice experience, especially as you did only YouTube yesterday and Spaces didn't work and like YouTube comments were popping. That was felt very much alive. I mean, it always does if I'm hosting and I'm reading the aggregated comments on StreamYard, which is something that we can do here. But from a like regular listener's perspective, it feels very much alive if people are like chatting along and throughout the show, and I quite like that.
It was cool. I do wonder sometimes, like, would it be best if you just make every single person go to one place, like focus in one place, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Spaces, whether it's like one person's channel on Twitter video or something, like, you know, when you get that focused attention, it did feel like a different kind of energy. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? We obviously want to reach as many people, and I think people are comfortable in different places. That's the thing. Some people like to sit in Spaces and do audio only, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, sometimes in my mind, I'm thinking that if I had to drop anything out of video, YouTube, and Spaces, it would be Spaces. But obviously, we can't do that because Spaces has a bunch of listeners who have been with us since day one. And Spaces also has something that's equally as important, which is people like Funky, like Oxy, joining us on stage and speaking to us.
Yeah, you've got stage, yeah.
And we have them on video then as well. And that's I feel like that adds so much to the show, and I love that. And just for that reason alone, I wouldn't drop Spaces. And we can't have like 7-8 people chiming in on video every day. That's just not going to work layout wise. So like having this audio feed sourcing in from people joining us there and talking is great. So if anything, I wish that YouTube would have something like that. we can aggregate everything on YouTube and run it in the same way.
YouTube radio.
Yeah. The main thing where I find it annoying with Spaces is just the technical setup of that. Because like you need to have the extra thing for the roadcaster to pop the phone in and have all the things going. And I was like, that it's just annoying. There's no better way. That's, you know, complaining about X to integrate that, because YouTube is so much more straightforward as an integration than how Spaces is done. Even like X video streaming works great. But Spaces is like the odd one in the technical setup.
That is true. That is true. I think ultimately now it's nice to be able to give people the choice and meet them wherever they are. I think that's one of the things that tech enables us to do now. So that is that on the technical side. Good that you experienced it as a listener. Sometimes it's fun to do that. Aside from that, big day, as you said. Why are you excited? You've got a bit of a bounce in your, can't say step because you're not moving anywhere, but if you were stepping somewhere, I would bet you had a bounce in it today. What's going on?
Plasma TGE in 49 minutes, and it's up on the pre-market. We're going to talk about that.
Bouncy.
Yeah, it's bouncy. It's up 12% on the pre-market and Hyperliquid, and I'm really excited for that. That's a big play. It's a big day, so I want to see it come to life.
Good. So for the people who are wondering, we're gonna do the full conversation on XPL today. Sure, Asta is still doing numbers. I know it's a bit down from where it was, but today's focus is going to be XPL. We're going to do a bit of a general roundup on the market because, in general, it doesn't feel entirely healthy in general. So we will touch on the general market. We'll hit XPL predominantly. And maybe we'll do a bit of further reflections on Asta at the moment, the CZ-backed Hyperliquid competitor DEX, so perp DEX. So that's what is on the agenda for today. I'm looking forward to get into the discussion predominantly because I think me and Legendary haven't, obviously we both have XPL exposure, but we also have not necessarily spoken about this before today or haven't done prep together. So I'm just curious for his thoughts on how he's reading the situation. And I think we're going to do a little bit of live figuring it out, live real discussion on what we think is going to happen. So stay tuned for that. Right, let's get into it though, starting with the price action as usual to get you up to speed with everything's happening on the price side before we get into the headlines themselves. We got Bitcoin down 1% to 111.5K, is down almost 5% on the week. ETH is at $4,007, down 5% on the 24 hours as well. Down 12% on the 7-day chart. XRP is down a couple of percent, down almost 10% on the week as well. BNB is down 4% today, but only down 1% on the week. That's back down to $982. Sol is down 4%, back to $200, giving up the whole move up from 200 to 250. But obviously ETH, everything's given up a whole bunch of its moves here. ETH went as high as just 4.7K not long ago. Hyperliquid has also been experienced continued sell-offs as well, down 26%, down a whole quarter over the last 7 days, down 5% today. And Sui is down 5% today to $3.22, down 17% on the week. But because of, actually, this is strange, on CoinGecko, Hyperliquid and Sui, is this happening on your one, Ledge? Is Sui beneath Hyperliquid? Okay, no. Yeah. On my CoinGecko, Sui has flipped Hyperliquid, even though, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, CMC has them 3 billion apart.
Okay. Getting into the meme coin side of things, again, red across the board. Doge is down 4% to 23 cents. Pepe is down 4%. Pump is down 13% to 5.1 bill FTV. So that's really, really sold off. As Pump down 35% on the week. So that's a pretty aggressive sell-off on the meme coin side. I did note that the buybacks have slowed down a reasonable amount, and that kind of calls into question that whole strategy, right? If you were thinking they were just going to continue with the same volume and speed of buybacks, it looks like that is not the correct thesis to have. Bonk is down 5% as well. Trump is down a couple of percent. SPX is down 5. WIF is down 5. Fartcoin is down 5. Okay, we're red across the board here, guys. Red across the board. Rect is down 5. Single digits red would be my general take. Rune Lord in the comments saying market is selling off to bid XPL. Legendary, do you think any truth to that potentially?
I would love that, but I don't think this is the case.
I do think when Asta moved aggressively, I think other things started to bleed. I'm not saying that's the sole reason, but again, when you see these things that take up all of the timeline's attention, people need to figure out where they're going to buy from. And if I think people are pretty overexposed personally at this point in the cycle because people are so convicted that we're going to go higher. I don't know how much spare capital people have on the sidelines waiting for something like XPL. So I'm actually open to it. I'm open to that idea personally. Getting into the headlines though, which we're going to discuss in more detail today. Another red day in the market. As I said, the ETH, BNB, and Sol's down 3%. Bitcoin's back down to 111. Plasma's XPL trading at around 0.8 cents, which is an $8 billion FDV ahead of its launch today, 8 a.m. Eastern time. We'll discuss that thoroughly today, what we think is going to happen, how the market's responding, both to the token itself and the broader market. And then finally, CZ-backed PerpDex asked to flip Circle in 24-hour fees. Allegedly not allegedly, there was $13 million of fees. However, the position being put there is that there's been a fair amount of wash trading potentially. So that's something to note. It's a notable price action. AST is down 7% to $2.10. Stable, the other kind of stable coin protocol chain by an older former co-founder of Tether, is up 20% to a 5.3 billion FTV. I wonder whether that's going to be part of our conversation later, Legendary, whether we compare that with Plasma in any way. Zero G is down 24% to 4 billion FTV today. Pump is down 9% to 5.1. And Punk Strategy, the NFT coin, which is uses the funds to buy back CryptoPunks, is up 30% to a $45 million FTV. So something is pumping in the market. That is quite interesting to see. Anything we need to note on the NFT side of things, Legendary?
Yes, let's take a quick look. Maybe a quick comment on Punk Strategy. There's, I think, a couple more strategies, 6, 7 more to launch this week. So I'm curious to see how the market will handle all of those. In terms of the NFTs, the move is not as dramatic, to be honest, as you would expect given how ETH has been behaving. Moonbirds are flat, 2.8 for ETH floor. Pudgies are just down 1%, down 3% over the week, 10.10 ETH floor. Meebits, they are moving up. So is the Meebit strategy. They're up 40% on the week, 10% on the day, 1.04 ETH floor for them. So finally have gone above 1 ETH again. Miladies also on a very aggressive move upwards, 8% up, 1.75, and that was after a very red week for them. And then we have the CryptoToads moving up 40% on the day, 0.67 ETH floor. Kytogenesis NFTs up 58% on the week, up 27% of the day at a 0.8 ETH floor. I wonder if some of the moves like CryptoToads are to do with the expected TokenWorks strategies to be launched for them. I have to say that I haven't looked at the recent announcement to see if we already know what strategies these are going to be. Of this is people speculating on what strategies they could be.
I think it's a good question. Let's just check immediately. I believe that there are some specific. This doesn't look like the right NFT strategy.
Oh yeah, they have a preview. They have basically a GIF that previews a couple collections, and CryptoToads are on them.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of that. I saw Jack Butcher quote tweet as well, say maybe he's going to be part of it as well. Eddie in the comments says the 7 strategies have been announced, so it's probably those 7 that are being previewed in that tweet, and the floors are up on most of them. So that's an interesting dynamic. Thanks for sharing that on the screen, Edge, for the people who are watching in. Interesting dynamic, something to keep the NFT folk excited at the moment. And so it's nice to see something that is actually going up in price with the rest of the market is down. But in terms of the rest of the roundup, before we get to the headlines today, we've got the Senate panel to hold taxation of digital assets hearing on October the 1st. We've got Coinbase announcing listing of stablecoins for Australian dollar and Singapore dollar. So that was pretty interesting. Got Polymarket announcing 4% annualized rewards paid out daily to open positions and select long-term poly markets. That's pretty good to be able to earn on your positions. Hyperliquid USDH stablecoin goes live with $2.2 million of early volume. I think that grew a little bit after. That was the heavily competed for ticker, although I don't think it's that special anymore in the sense that all those other teams can still deploy because it's permissionless over there. Bulk raises $8 million seed round to accelerate the end state for Perpetual's DEX trading. I believe that one is on Solana. But gosh, the number of perp DEXs coming out of the forest at the moment. I don't know why I picked forest there. But there's a lot. There's a lot. People are farming lighter, they're farming extended. Now there's bulk. Someone else shared another one in the chat the other day. There's the one on base. I'm losing track here, and I'm kind of fatigued with perp DEX. And the thing is, everyone expects you to be farming all of them. It's like with what money are you supposed to be farming every single perp DEX? I feel like we've seen this before. You don't need to farm all of them. You just need to choose at some point. Final take here, Ledge. Then I want to hear your thoughts on that specifically. Rec Brands announces $100,000 of Rec token buybacks to bring total holdings to $1.6 million worth, and announces Rec Energy, cool new direction for the brand, I think, as they focus on the energy side of things. So that's the roundup. Curious for your thoughts there, Ledge. First on this perpetual creation of perp dexes. How are you seeing all of these things stack up? Is it worth anyone's time to farm every single one? What are you like? How are you thinking about it individually?
Yeah, I think it's basically the new meme coin launchpad. With that being said, there's maybe only one long-term winner, and for the meme coin launchpads, that is Pump Fun at the moment, at least. But that doesn't mean that other opportunities aren't worthwhile to entertain in the short run. I don't think that it's reasonable to farm all of those. You will have to make a couple of selected bets, and you will also have to, I feel like, especially with perp dexes, keep in mind that it is a volume game. And I personally am not a big fan of this like fake volume argument, because it doesn't make a ton of sense to argue, oh, Aster made $13 million in fees, but it is all fake volume. Because what is fake volume? Like, people use Hyperliquid. People have delta neutral strategies with Liminal just to farm an airdrop.
And no one knows, right? Because you don't necessarily know who's hedging, who's doing anything else.
Exactly. You don't know if someone doesn't have like a couple of million here and a couple of million on Lighter and is like hedged, and the only reason why they do it is to farm an airdrop. It just appears more organic because the timeline is not clear. You just don't know when and if there's going to be a next Hyperliquid airdrop. Whereas with Aster, you have a clear timeline and everyone's trying to fit volume in within that. So the organic versus not organic argument is just simply nonsensical, because Hyperliquid might seem more organic, but nobody can tell. Nobody can tell how much is like people actually taking real exposure because they want to have that 5x long on Solana, and how many people are just there to farm an airdrop in whatever way.
It's a great point. Yeah, I think it's easy to point the finger at Aster right now because it's blowing Hyperliquid numbers out of the water. However, no one knows if that initial water measurement is the right measurement to even compare it against. Like maybe there's all of this either fake volume or standardized volume as part of some alternative strategy. Who knows how many real trades there are even on, you know? I mean, I'm sure there's a number, but it's all wildly inflated by people.
Players.
Yeah, people making running particular strategies. So that is a fair point. That is a good point. Just shout to Francisca in the comments saying there's Ranger Finance on Solana as well. And to your point, Ledge, how do you go about then trying to decide? So you said, okay, you can't do all of them. It's literally not possible. How would you go about deciding though? Because usually one of the ways I go about it is I look at the people backing them and I'll say, okay, well, these VCs are backing them. Maybe I like this one more than another, or this one more than another. And by the way, I appreciate one of the reasons Hyperliquid was so good because there was no VCs. And actually that's one of the reasons why I hadn't done very much on it, because that's usually one of my indicators. Like, I read for some of the VCs that I like and I think who have a history of backing good things. And if someone doesn't have one at all, then like, what's my read supposed to be? So that was definitely a way for me to update my own way of thinking about things. But when the challenge I find here is that a number of these I feel are actually backed by good people because they all want to be a part of the space. So I'm kind of leveling out and just saying, well, do you know what? Just screw all of them. I'm not going to do any of them apart from Aster. I bought some spot yesterday. I might do some more, but then, you know, there's so much volume on there. I don't have the time to do the high numbers that you were just talking about. So even that, I'm wondering whether I'll do anything meaningful. I'm not entirely sure, but curious for your process and for the other people who are thinking, okay, well, how do I decide? How would you answer that question?
So the thing that I like to look at is like sort of sentiment and what people are specifically not talking about. And for me, that was Lighter. And Lighter a couple of months ago, nobody wanted to use. Every single group where I posted Lighter, people were talking about Lighter, the sentiment was the same. It was like, Why do we need that? There's Hyperliquid. Nobody needs a second perpdex. And that seemed under farmed to me. Like, even if nobody needs a second perpdex, the second perpdex, if it only were to be lighter, would probably do decently well. And even if it's just for a day, it looked like an underfarmed opportunity. And now it's hard to come. It's hard to accumulate points on lighter because the volume and the usage did grow. And again, I don't care too much about the volume. Like, I more care about like how has sentiment and interest in a protocol evolved. And I feel like interest in Hyperliquid has evolved in a natural way, especially after the first airdrop. So was the sentiment with lighter. Again, people ignored it in the beginning. Then the perp competition heated up. Then people turned slowly towards lighter, and that's something that I like. With stuff like Asta, I struggle a bit because it's like so sudden and so inflated. And again, I think if you like, hedge your bets and you get like a shit ton of volume done, you will make money on the airdrop. But I feel like that's not where I am best at. That also reminds me a bit of, oh my God, what was that? What was the chain that I farmed this year? Not Phantom. What did Phantom rebrand to? The whole
Phantom the wallet.
No, not the wallet. The whole like Daniele says
Sonic
ecosystem. Yeah. So I farmed Sonic and I was like, that's basically farm entire ecosystem. That turned out to be disappointing because everyone was doing that. So I'm not as everyone in the comment goes Sonic. Thank you guys. I was not too good at that. So I feel like I'm best placed to find like underfarmed opportunities early, and I'm not good in going in the main battle when we have like 7 perp dexes competing and everyone's trying to get a shit ton of volume done because the incentives are already like very much known. But with that being said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to use Hyperliquid. I'm going to continue to use lighter. I'm going to have it did take a break from that, but I'm going to go back to build some like hedged positions between the two of those and stick with that.
Fair. For the people who are curious for my take on it, I in general, as I've always said all the time, is I want to do the laziest thing possible. So I don't want to have, maybe in a similar way to Legendary, I don't want to be pressing loads of, well, actually Legendary does press way more buttons than me and is better, is more his strategies revolve around that a little bit more. But I don't want to be in this battle either, in the sense, because I don't want to be going against hundreds of millions of dollars of volume or whatever. But I do want to use protocols like relatively naturally and try to select the best ones. And for me, in this specific situation, it is Hyperliquid because it's proven, Asta because it's CZ backed and Binance backed, and lighter because it's the one that is furthest along compared to all the others. Plus, I've heard good things about the founder. So like, that's it. There's not gonna be more for me. Even by the time I'm getting to the second and third ones there, I'm not doing it in a significant way. I think it's much harder to do this stuff unless you're going to commit significant time and capital to it. And that's not something I want to do at this stage. And so I prefer it. Even that's too hands-on for me. I want to be lazy, like park my stables here and leave it, not park my stables and put one position somewhere and then log in somewhere else. Like, I don't have time to do that anymore. Not with what we're doing in the media and the other investing stuff we're doing. So that's just my perspective. Think of the quality of the product and the founder, basically, is my kind of thinking at the moment. Right. Should we get into the main headlines then, Ledge?
Sounds good. Let's do it. Let's start with the first one, and let's do a bit of an overview of what's happening in the general market to kind of get a better feeling of what this crypto dump means or it doesn't mean. Starting with the S&P 500. There we go. Sharing that on screen for the people watching on video. We're still green over the last 5 days. We're still seeing a green week. However, we are down a bit, down 30 pips yesterday. And that is also the sentiment that we're seeing on the pre-markets today, where the implied open is down 0.28% for the S&P 500. NASDAQ is down a bit more, is down 0.4% on the pre-market. And if we take a look at Finviz to get a view on what has happened on the stock side yesterday, I think we can pretty quickly see that, with the exception of Tesla up another 4%, that the tech values, Apple down 0.8, Nvidia down 0.8%, Amazon down, Google down 1.8%, are, or Alphabet to be specific, are struggling, are down a bit, but nothing too major as of right now, but definitely a bit of a tech correction that we have been seeing over these last days as well. Very same thing goes for the gold price. Yes, gold is up on the day, is up 0.4% at $3,750 per ounce, but it also was a bit higher, so it had a bit of a dip. It was almost as high as 3.8K, but corrected down a bit. So the main difference, however, I feel like, is if you look at the fear and greed index, it's something I started to do more recently, to look at the fear and greed index on CNN, and to look at the one on CoinMarketCap to see if we experience like different levels of fear and greed. And CoinMarketCap is at 41, so it's like moving slightly into the fear zone, whereas CNN is more greed driven, so to speak. It's at 56. So we do have obviously a bit of a dissonance between the two of those, because the stock market is just down a tiny bit and very close to all-time highs still, while crypto has seen a 15-20% correction over the week. For my own portfolio, I'm not really acting on that right now. Not really too worried structurally about that. I know that I said a couple weeks ago that I started shifting from like 50% stables into 40% stables and just increase exposure for the things where I wanted to increase that. I'm obviously down on some of these positions, but there's no rush for me to like kind of, exit those and shift around again. Just happy to wait it out.
Fair enough. I think I definitely played around, took some risk in that time. It was a little bit with perps and some other stuff. So I was playing around with Asta over the weekend, made some money there, bought back into Asta again, I think yesterday. So down a touch on that spot. But maybe the key difference between us at the moment is my articulation of like the downside. I'm far more concerned about the downside. I think we have a reasonable chance that we go lower, and I really want my ETH short back. So I had an ETH short on, I took it off just literally the day before we really moved, and I think I need to be more patient with that. I just think we're in a spot where even if we go higher in the medium term to long term, I want some downside protection. And when I get a moment after all this plasma stuff, which was going to be the main thing for the show today and the main decision kind of stuff that we need to make because we're so heavily exposed, I want to get my ETH short back on even at these levels, from to have my insurance, because I just think there is some structural weakness at the moment in the market. And pardon?
One quick question for you then. If you want to have your short back on, let me get this post up on stage by KBM, Keyboard Monkey, the trader, who's saying, ETH is a multi-day short, looking to hold this new position with whiteouts. Local top of the market is in. Thanks for your attention to this matter. Step out the way and be patient before buying back 3.3K by next month. What do you think of this post? Like,
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I mean, when I was talking about this, it was 4.4, right? And that would have been a beautiful position to have held. And as I said, I was clicking a lot of buttons over the weekend, made a bunch of money on Asta. And I just thought, I've been clicking a lot of buttons. I just want the whole thing clean. I want to psychologically be clean. Want to think about it again tomorrow. And then we started to move down. So I think I'm gonna put that back on once the plasma stuff's all cleared away for today. I think that's maybe the core difference between our perspectives at the moment. I want some downside protection and set the leverage to the point where you get liquidated if ETH goes to an all-time high. It's like, okay, if I get liquidated and ETH going to an all-time high, the rest of the stuff will have moved up, I hope. Like, I don't know, Pengu, for example, which I still am holding a little bit and underwater on. I'm assuming if ETH rips in that way because certain conditions become more helpful, then Pengu's going to move up and hopefully get there. And if it doesn't, then we're cooked in general. If I'm pretty sure ETH is always the kind of litmus test for the rest of the alt market, or that's how I feel about it anyway. So that's maybe our main thought there. Maybe just taking it into the direction of stocks and gold, and we're talking about these variety of assets a little bit more here. Ledge, do you have a view of crypto versus those assets at the moment? Do you think we're going to cool off at all, maybe in the other stuff, or is that something you think we just continues to run hot into Q4 as well?
I think we will have individual tech stocks that will do very well into Q4. We still have 2 more rate cuts to come that would, be very much in favor of the stock market to have a nice rally towards the end of the year. There might be a cool off in between. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Ultimately, we've seen the S&P 500 hit all-time high after new all-time high for almost 2 weeks straight. So it's not unnatural to see a cool down after that. But I still am bullish for a nice rally towards the end of the year.
Okay. I really think this rate cut thing, I am decreasingly confident that the rate cut will mean everything just sends in the way that we want it to, because everything's too telegraphed now. I think I made this point the other day, just reflecting on it one more time. I think the issue is we're so everything's so sanitized now, and everyone's decided so much that everyone needs to know everything in advance. And I'm not saying that there won't be a change in policy. Yes, sure, there needs to be change in policy for people then to go and take action. But it's so telegraphed, and yes, there will be moves made on the back of it, but I just don't think it's being made from a position of strength. And so I think, increasingly concerned that crypto is lagging and not showing much demand. And I think that's most shown in the exhaustion of the DATs, where the capital which has gone into Bitcoin, DATs have kind of, they did that first, then they went to ETH, and they went to SOL, then they went to AVAX. And it's okay, well, is anyone going to go back to Bitcoin and bid that up? Because if you're not, and you're just going to go down the risk curve, there's going to be nothing left. And what are you going to do with all your profits? Are you going to go back to bid Bitcoin? Because that's what you should do, ideally. But if you're not, because you're coming into these DATs to just pillage them and take your profit, then that's what's kind of concerning, the exhaustion on that side. I think you can pretty much conclusively say retail are gone, in my opinion. There's no retail anymore. Retail don't have any money, and retail got burned so hard last time around that they are not interested. So it's us and the institutions. Whatever deranged people are still left listening to this show compared to before, plus the deranged institutions who have decided to agree with us that this is all valuable stuff. So that's my view. What do you think there, Ledge? And then let's get into the plasma conversation.
I agree with most of it. The one thing I would disagree on or push back a bit on is the crypto being sanitized and everything is telegraphed stuff, because my view there is that this has been the case for stock markets forever. People have been speculating on rate cuts, and you had analysts saying this is the chance that this is going to happen, not going to happen. And the only difference is that we didn't have a market like Polymarket to bet on that. So stock market always has been forward looking and tried to price those things in and anticipate those. So that's nothing new. That's the only thing I'd push back on.
Okay. So that's our general perspective there. Let's get into the plasma conversation, because that's the big one for the day. What are we going to do? What do we need to know? So first off, as you know, Plasma is launching today. Plasma is the blockchain backed by Founders Fund. It's backed by Paolo from Tether. It's got a very close association with USDT and Tether. That's the specific form of stablecoin that they are pushing the most. It is launching today. They raised $50 million at a $500 million valuation not very long ago, where people were asked to commit capital. It earned points, which gave you an allocation for the XPL token. For the people who don't know, it went so fast. The sale got sold out very, very quickly. Sorry, the deposit caps got filled out very, very quickly. They filled, I think, $1 billion in deposits really, really fast. And then that took care of their $50 million raise. There weren't very many people who got into that, for people's context. Ledge, was it was like a couple of thousand maximum, a few thousand?
First deposit cap got filled within seconds and only like 1.1K people got in. And with the extensions, I think it's still around 3K people who got in.
So I think that's relevant when I do a little bit more of an analysis in a moment. So just a few thousand people got into that. And they're launching today. We are trading at around 83 cents now on Hyperliquid pre-markets. If you can bring that chart up, that's around an $8.3 billion FDV. They have also announced today that for the first time, the world's largest crypto exchange brings crypto's largest lending protocol into its Earn suite, powered by Plasma. So that means 280 million Binance users can now earn with Plasma USDT via Aave lending rails, with more incentives ahead. So I think they're pushing that as a pretty strong indicator that, they were able to bring these two pretty huge titans together, via themselves, kind of sign of their own personal strength. So that's the core information. Obviously, the initial investors are in at a $500 million valuation, and this is now a 16 to 17. Is that the right numbers? Yeah, 16 to 17x up on the allocations that ICO buyers bought. In terms of the amount raised, let me go to my notepad, because I was doing some note analysis today. So they raised $50 million in the ICO. The percentage of tokens that will be circulating, I think is around 18%. 10% was what was sold to the public, which are all unlocked straight away. And then you got 1% going to Binance and 7 or so other percent to people who are, for liquidity and stuff like that. And so I guess the sell pressure, Legendary, from the people who bought in at the current valuation is around 750 to 800 mil, right? Because people bought $50 million worth at that old valuation. That's up whatever amount. And so that's how much sell pressure there is now, I think. And so that's the situation we're in at the moment. And the question is, what do we do? What do we think? How are you viewing this token and its narrative? What is your specific perspective here?
Yeah, I like that Tether is valued, or wants to be valued, at 500 bill. I also think that to some extent numbers don't matter. I think Tether at 500 bill is overvalued, like put it in perspective with Goldman Sachs and other massive global banks. But I just like the big number, that if we have the narrative that Plasma is Tether chain and Tether is valued at 500 bill, that this is a good anchor. Not that I think Plasma goes to 500 bill. I also have seen that Simon from Moonron Capital, who've been quoting a couple of times in the show, did a post a couple of minutes ago to share his perspective. And I quite would like to bring that up on screen as well, because it's different from my perspective. Like, I'm inclined to sell a part of my Plasma tokens and see if it goes significantly higher than that. But Simon is taking a different perspective, and he's saying, well, first of all, disclosure, he participated in the pre-sale as well, and he will likely sell the majority of his position today. There is no FUD. There's a couple strong arguments for Plasma, one of which that Polypond is a great founder. He's generally rooting for him. It's a stablecoin chain. Stablecoins are crypto's killer use case, boosted by the Genius Act. It's positioned as Tether chain, yada, yada, yada. And then the counterpoints to that are, these arguments are mostly left curve and narrative driven. It's often enough in crypto, and it explains how they've already reached an $8.5 billion pre-market valuation. The reason he sells is simple. He doesn't see how this can run significantly higher without fundamentals massively catching up. As of today, not much is happening that justifies such valuation. He believes they can pull it off, but it takes some time, and he doubts that they'll outperform the broader market in the meantime. And the much praised TVL is misleading, as no one can withdraw yet. Once that changes, he expects deposits to shrink quickly. Also, public sale participants up 17x here. Most will take profits and rotate. And Plasma isn't the only one pursuing this vision. We have Stable building a similar product with the official backing from Bitfinex and Paolo as well. Branding aside, new chains have a limited mode. I agree with some points. I maybe disagree with others. Yes, we do have Stable, but if Stable is trading at a $5.5 billion valuation, that's to me not as interesting as Plasma. I could see it go higher. But ultimately, TG is in a couple minutes, and I know myself, I go like back and forth between those things. But ultimately, I always will listen to my gut feeling and decide if I click the sell button or if I'm going to keep it. But right now, I'm feeling like it could rip higher. But I definitely want, because it's such a significant amount, I want to lock some profits in as well, for sure.
Yeah, I think my general position with this stuff, as usual, there's my general rule, and then from which you create exceptions, right? My general rule when it comes to airdrops or allocations, which you get after you make some type of investment or you take a position, you provide liquidity in whatever way, is that you sell and you don't think about it. Like this is the time you pay yourself, because especially when you're up 17x, like this is not ridiculous. The market is tanking around you. You would feel, the thing that I like to think about is how sick would you feel if this goes down, even 20% and you haven't taken anything off. If it goes down 30% and you haven't taken anything off, like that's fairly common when it comes to these type of things. If Bitcoin suddenly breaks down beneath 109, 108, which is really not very far away from, how does that hold up in 24 hours in Plasma trading? It might be the case that, look, it sucks all the liquidity from everything. That might even be a part of why the rest of the market, I don't think it's the main reason why the rest of the market is selling off, but certainly people are considering participating in this, I think. Just a few numbers though, for me, like the numbers that I thought were interesting. Whilst it is in no way similar to Pump, I thought it's interesting because they're the two tokens recently which have been released with Hyperliquid pre-markets live on them. And so it's interesting to think about how people behaved in one and the other. So they're not similar protocols at all, but I think it's interesting knowing that Hyperliquid pre-markets were available for both. What happened? Why did it happen? So this was the direct comparison I was making earlier. So XPL raised 50 mil in their ICO. Bear in mind, Pump raised 1.3 bill in their ICO. It was humongous. They did 33% of the supply, almost half of which was private, and then the other half of which was the public ICO. So it was like two halves of the raise. One was private, the other half was public. But basically, they went with 33% circulating. So that's way, way higher than what XPL have circulating. And so the potential sell pressure was way higher. The valuation was way higher as well. So Pump was valued at 4 bill at that ICO, whereas XPL was valued at 500. And I think that's relevant now because you know that XPL and ICO participants are up way, way more. And usually it's like you can't fight that gravity. It's just people are up way too much. You actually need those people to sell to reset the cost basis of people. Like people need to buy in around here so that it can go higher. Otherwise, it's just like fighting gravity usually when you have this many people who are up that much. So I do think that's relevant. Although, as you say, that's kind of counterbalanced by the fact it's far fewer people. Whereas in Pump, there's $1 billion, like more than that of sell pressure. So yeah, people were up 1.5x on Pump, whereas people are up 15, 16x here. So that is a big difference. And then I guess the key difference in terms of forward-looking narratives. Pump had the forward-looking narratives of potential buybacks, creator streaming, whereas this forward-looking narrative is stable coins, the neobank, and payments. I like this narrative way more. I think it's the perfect narrative moving forward. So I just wanted to frame it like that to show the thinking that I went through, which started making me lean towards, like, I think this is one of the ones. It's a rare case which could be okay to hold, but man, if you're just up this much, you would feel sick holding 17x and not doing it. So I think that's basically where I'm coming out. Like, I'll take significant profit here. It's an awesome thing. I think they're going to do great. It could make me feel sick in the other direction, but I usually don't stress about that. It's gonna, I think it's going to do well. The market's going to like it. But I think people will lock in some profits here, even if it's going to go higher later, potentially. I am curious though, like, you know, they're going to have to, they did that announcement about the Plasma One, the card, and the kind of neobank setup where they're going to be able to pay, you're going to be able to pay using your stablecoins on Plasma. They did that before TGE, right? So that was the thing before. So I'm always looking for what's the future. What's the next thing they're going to get people to decide about after? So that's now in the past. That's now kind of priced in or in people's thinking. 4 days, in 4 days' time, when people, the initial excitement over this is maybe waning a touch, what's the next thing? Do they just need to build that? Is there something else? Maybe I've got that question mark as well, which is just, again, something to think about. But that's my ramblings on it. Ledge, what do you think?
The thing I like the most is the point that you made is how pissed or how sick would you feel not locking in these profits. And the other thing I've been wondering about is, so obviously Plasma is trading right now on the pre-market, but I feel like the pre-market has a different sentiment in the sense of pre-market trades in isolation of like broader market sentiment. Like if Plasma were live and ETH and everything else dumps 7% on the day, I feel like Plasma would be affected by that as well. Whereas like if Plasma is like still on the pre-market, I don't think it's affected by the overall sentiment because people kind of view that in isolation. And it's a bit of an interesting situation because we never had that before, that we basically only with Hyperliquid got pre-markets that have significant and substantial volume. But yeah, out of everything you said, the thing that resonated most with me was like, how sick would I feel not locking in a good part of my profits knowing that I'm up 16, 17, whatever X.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I mean, if you flip it around, the thing that got me thinking the other way is it's only between 10 and 18% circulating. And I think there's a lot of people who don't have exposure because of the way the ICO was done. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we're going to make sure all the funds get in at this price, and then we're going to make sure that everyone else gets in and there's a ton of capital around. It was like, there's not a lot of wallets. So I think there's not a lot of wallets and there's not a lot of tokens at the moment. So that makes me think that this could be one of the ones that if people just decide they want to go for it, then they might just do that. I do think people will take profits simultaneously, but maybe it's one of the ones where the demand can get eaten up quite. The sell pressure can get eaten up sooner rather than later because of how the specific mechanics of the way the ICO was done versus Pump, which is the one I'm comparing it with, where it kind of makes sense in hindsight, where there was like too many people got in that way and there was so much more circulating. So yeah, just looking at the comments here, Runelord saying, I think Plasma is a bid in soon, not specifically, maybe not right at that exact moment at TGE, but maybe soon-ish after. Maybe that'll be the case. But guys, those are our thoughts for today. We're gonna end it. We're gonna wrap it up a little bit sooner today so that we can get a handle on what is going on with Plasma. For the people who are considering trading it further or wanting to get involved, I believe they had an announcement just yesterday from their main account that you can trade it on Stargate. It says Stargate is the official bridge for Plasma mainnet launch. You can buy XPL immediately on launch day. You can do instant swaps into the Plasma ecosystem. You can do zero fee deposits for all OFT assets, USDT0, USDE, AUSD0, and more. So that is one place, and I'm sure, look, it's got listings on all the majority of the major exchanges as well. So that is one way to do it. If you wanted to do it in a DEX, I saw someone ask the question in our Telegram. I think that's the officially kind of suggested way. I'm sure other people are going to want to get involved in the trading of it. And I believe Unit has it on Hyperliquid as well. So sure, you can do the perps, but you can buy spot day one on Hyperliquid 2 if you are interested. So that's that, guys. I'm going to wrap it here. Hope that was interesting. Hope that was informative as usual. Thanks so much for joining us as always. Legendary, thank you for co-hosting. Thank you for being with us in the comments, in the chat, and supporting us as usual. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.